Hey, welcome back subscribers to my world of stocks. In today's video, we're talking all about SoFi stock. Now, if you're new here, then you may have missed the years really where I've been shouting from the rooftops about how much of a great pickup this stock was. In fact, here's just a few examples of that from videos that I've put out in the past couple years. We've got this one here called 5 Giant Reasons Why SoFi Stock Will Skyrocket in the Future. Another one, 3 Reasons to Buy SoFi Stock on This Dip. And the most recent from about a year ago, SoFi stock is a screaming buy at these levels. Well, speaking of those levels, at that time, as I showed you in that video, SoFi stock was trading for only around $6 a share. And if we fast forward to today, of course, at the time of this recording, SoFi now trades for more than 27, meaning it's increased by a mind-blowing 323% since making that video for you guys. In other words, if you bought the stock when I said that it was a screaming buy, and perhaps you sold it more recently today, you would have more than quadrupled your money on it. And look, I know that sounds like I'm bragging. I'm really not trying to brag about it. In fact, I would be the first person to admit that I do get stocks wrong sometimes, and it's definitely not always perfect like this. But the reason why I bring it up is because with the stock having soared now by as much as it has, I do think that it's time to make an update video for you guys to share with you my updated thoughts on it at these much higher levels, especially given the fact that many people wonder if SoFi is now in a bubble, which is a question that I actually get asked quite frequently, and whether I plan to sell out of it now or avoid the stock or maybe even buy more as it continues to climb. Well, I will cover all of those ideas and topics in this video today, and there's going to be chapters down below in case you need to skip around or skip past anything. But just to give you a quick answer before we start, I'll just tell you right off the bat that I am no longer buying SoFi stock at this very moment. However, it's not because I lost faith in the company or in their long-term potential, but rather it's simply because I've already built out the position that I want in them, which I'm obviously up a huge amount on. I think it was like around 300% profits last time I checked on my position. And so I just no longer feel the need to keep adding any more to it. And instead, I'd much rather just hold on to what I already have for the long term. And although I did cash in some profits a little while back, it was only around 10% of my position just to make sure that I locked in some of those profits. But the vast majority of my position, around 90% of it, I'm still holding on to very long term. I just wanted to make sure, for sure. And that's something I preach to you guys all the time, is that it's always okay to make sure you lock in at least some profits. When you're up such a huge amount on a position, it's okay to trim it just a little bit and make sure you lock in some profits. Also, it was becoming a little bit too big in my portfolio. So exposure wise, in relation to other stocks in my portfolio, I also wanted to kind of lower it down just a little bit. Which, by the way, I will be making a video soon for you guys on my personal overall portfolio too. I'll show you how much I'm up or down on each stock and all that kind of stuff too. But yeah, just going back to SoFi here for a minute. With all of that in mind, let's run through the reasons why I am choosing to invest long-term still in this company, and whether I think that the valuation is in fact in bubble territory and why or why not. And I'll even finish up with where I think that there may actually be another buying opportunity, many in the future, but exactly where they may be coming soon for the stock. If you don't already have a position in SoFi and maybe you're looking for an entry point, I'll let you know where I think some of those entry points could be coming. So anyway, let's just go ahead and talk all about this. If you're an investor in SoFi stock, this is definitely the video for you. We got some things to cover and talk about. Now, let's start the conversation here with the cons, the concerns first, because understandably so, I've been getting a lot of comments and messages asking whether I think SoFi is in a bubble right now. And to be honest, it's not that bad of an argument when you look at the valuation after such a huge run up in price, which I would say that for sure, the vast majority of that argument is going to have to do with the valuation, where the stock now trades for a monster of a forward PE ratio above 47, according to Yahoo Finance. Now, for context, the sector median right now in finance and banking is only around 12. So SoFi is trading around 3 to 4 times higher than that, which is very rich. Now, it does get better on an even more forward-looking metric like the PEG ratio, which is a metric I like to use a lot myself. And there it's sitting at around 2.5, which is a bit better, but even there, it is still more than double where the sector is at of only around 1. Of course, this being a fintech, though, I would argue that SoFi deserves to trade at a much higher premium to what traditional banks and financial institutions might be going for, which I'll make the case for that in just a second here. But when we're at this large of a premium, it's still going to be very hard to justify that valuation. And by all accounts, this is a stock here that is very much priced to perfection, meaning that their performance will have to be damn near perfect in order to justify this price level to Wall Street analysts and investors, most of which, by the way, don't really look at stocks the same way that I do as a very long-term minded investor. Most people, I'd say, are much more in the kind of short-term trading camp where they're looking for immediate profits to everything they do, focusing on upcoming months, weeks, or even days, rather than the next, 5 to 10 years or even longer in my case, and maybe yours too. I can't say who's watching this video at this moment, but just kind of the point being here that there's many things that could actually upset Wall Street analysts and investors. And one of those things is future earnings. For example, if SoFi doesn't consistently beat estimates, which they'd probably have to do by very large amounts too, because of how high the stock is right now, well, it could very easily drop on any news that doesn't overly impress them, let alone something that could actually be negative if SoFi happens to miss on earnings, for example. That could be a bit more devastating to the stock. However, despite the likely volatility that I think is to come, when I instead focus on the long-term potential of SoFi, I just can't bring myself to exit this position. Far from it. And here's why. First of all, there's really no telling how big of a company SoFi could turn into long-term. And the biggest reason why is because unlike the cheaper legacy players in finance, SoFi is a very disruptive fintech. And it's one that has the potential of capturing huge amounts of what is one of the absolute biggest markets in the world, if not the biggest, in banking and finance, which you could argue is what really moves the entire world, money being the main driving force of pretty much everything we do. In fact, the financial services market as a whole is expected to reach a mind-blowing $45 trillion by 2028. So even though SoFi is still let's call it a tiny little ant by comparison to that, if they were to disrupt even just a small piece of that market, it would still translate to gigantic profits for a company like this, which they're aiming to do, by the way, disrupt it by offering as many different products for as many of those different services as possible in what has quickly become one of the most diversified all-in-one online digital finance platforms available out there that together offers all kinds of member services within banking, loans, credit cards, investing, insurance, and so much more, all of which is also done much faster and more conveniently because of their various integrations, which has also allowed them to cross-sell and even upsell many of those different products and services to their existing customer base that they continue to grow larger in count, thus creating a sort of snowball effect where the limits are pretty hard to estimate just how big SoFi could gradually become over the longer term. By the way, one of the most profitable of those services, what I'm very excited about myself as an investor in this company, is their new SoFi Plus subscription membership that gives all sorts of perks and rewards the more you use their various offerings, and thus encouraging even more engagement, more cross-selling within the entire ecosystem, and translates to recurring revenues for them as well at very high margins. And so these moves have really been paying off for SoFi over the years, with both members and products, for example, growing by an average rate of well over 50% 8% per year since 2020. Again, at the moment, SoFi is still relatively small. I think they're not even ranked in like the top 50 largest banks in America, but they're aiming to become a top 10 bank in the future, which we're already seeing the early signs of the tremendous growth and success that is required in order to achieve that. In fact, last year was actually their first ever of being GAAP profitable. So while the valuation is high at the moment, this is a company that, again, is just barely getting started. In fact, the average market cap of the top 10 largest banks in America is in the hundreds of billions of dollars, yet SoFi today is still only worth around 30 billion. And so even though some of the valuation metrics are expensive for the stock at the moment, I don't actually think that tells you or paints the entire picture here. One that is still looking very promising for investors, in my opinion, investors that have the patience and the stomach really to maneuver through all of the volatility that you're likely to experience with such a richly valued growth stock like this. And that's exactly what I've always done myself as an investor, and which, by the way, brings me to my final point here, sort of like my closing thoughts. That's that I plan to continue doing what I've always done with a stock like this, making sure to buy the heaviest during their largest dips. Now, granted, I already have a large position in SoFi, so it's going to be much easier for someone like me to navigate through it, whereas someone who's yet to enter it may have a more challenging time. But even then, I wouldn't be discouraged because, like I said, I expect plenty of volatility to run through SoFi in the coming years. And if you're patient enough for it, I think you will find those great dips to buy on too, which in many cases, I wouldn't be too surprised if they occur around earnings season. In fact, I've seen it happen many times myself, and I've actually done most of my buying around those times too, where it doesn't happen all the time, but many times I've seen the stock tank on earnings despite putting up phenomenal numbers. And if you ask me why that is, I think the logical part of my brain would argue that it's because of the very rich premium valuation, where Wall Street will still try to kind of drag it down closer to the rest of the sector, which is, again, very, very cheaply valued because of the legacy players that are involved there, despite this actually being a disruptive tech stock. And then also, I would just say that kind of like the more conspiratorial part of me wonders if Wall Street doesn't just use any excuse they can to temporarily cause a dip in a stock like this so that the whales can come in and buy in cheaper. Again, it's the conspiratorial part of me, but I just feel like I've kind of seen that happen, especially around earnings season where, the numbers are still looking pretty good, but for whatever reason, they find an excuse that it wasn't just as good as they wanted it to be, it wasn't like amazingly exceptional. And so I feel like the big financial institutions, the big whales, end up shorting the stock, or they sell it. They manipulate the market because they have so much influence over it. They cause retail traders to panic and they sell out of it. And then, of course, they benefit from both sides of it, because if they're shorting the stock, they benefit from it. But then the whales come back in after that drop and they buy in, and then the stock gradually rises again over time. I feel like I've seen this happen so many times with SoFi. And then they benefit from that too. So I don't know. Look, I'm not saying that it's going to happen again for sure this time, but earnings season is coming up for SoFi. In fact, they're going to be reporting again in just a week from now. So if you are someone who is not yet in SoFi stock, but you're looking for maybe a lower buying opportunity, you just feel like it's too high, you'd want to see a dip in it, look, add the date to your calendar, add the stock to your watch list, because it may not happen this earnings, maybe it'll happen the next one or the one after that. But I've seen SoFi be very volatile around earnings season, and any stock like this that is like a growth, highly valued stock, they tend to be very volatile around earnings season. So if you're asking me like when is a good time to look for a dip in these types of stocks, I would say earnings season is the time that you really want to be paying close attention to these stocks, following them closely. And then if if SoFi comes out, reports some numbers that just didn't quite meet expectations or didn't quite please investors and traders, and they punish the stock and it falls hard, that is, one of the good entry points. And it's something that I've done myself a lot. I've probably bought SoFi stock, heavily, maybe the most heaviest around earnings seasons, whenever it did have a big drop. And I've done that with many stocks too. And again, I always just kind of buy heavier on the dips. The more that they fall, I'm always hoping stocks go down. I know people, it's like some people just don't understand, but they're like, why would you want a stock to go down? Because I want the lowest price possible. So I'm always hoping stocks go down, drag those suckers down. Let me get the lowest price possible and then ride the wave up long term. Long term, big still believer in SoFi, the company. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. I think management is doing a great job. I love using the platform. SoFi, look, it's like one of the few things that I ever recommend to people. I actually give my referral link in the description of my videos for you trying SoFi, because you get like free stock just for signing up, just for using it for free. But the app itself is just so convenient. I can put all my finances in one place. I even set up like a Roth IRA account there. I got my brother to set up a Roth IRA account recently, so now he's getting all into investing finally. It like took forever to convince him, but it was just so easy on SoFi. The app is buttery smooth. I feel good about recommending it to family and friends. I don't know. I just think they're doing all the right things. And so I could definitely see them growing larger over time and more people using it. And I just want to be invested in a stock like that because I just see a lot of upside potential with them and a lot of disruption too. And there's so many other areas that they could go into as well, but maybe those will be topics for another video. Hey, maybe I'll even give you an update video on earnings. If anything crazy happens, if the stock crashes or something, I'll, be sure to update you guys. Maybe it'll soar more, who knows? We're not fortune tellers here, but I'm just kind of sharing with you my thoughts, my opinion as an investor who has, tracked this stock, followed it for a long time. But I think that's just about it for this video. If you have any thoughts, leave them down below for me. Even if you're a bear, if you have like some negative thoughts on SoFi stock, let me know that too, because that always helps me as an investor. I like to hear both sides of the argument. I don't like to be in a bubble myself, no pun intended, because of this video. But yeah, I don't like to be like in an echo chamber where I'm just like hearing all the bullish views. I would love to hear some of the bearish views too, but I don't like, for me, the only bearish things I can come up with on SoFi is just the valuation. It's just that it's climbed a lot. It's just that it's a little pricey, but business wise, I just see so much potential for them. So I don't know, unless you never know with management, they could screw things up at some point, and that's happened with many other companies, but I don't think that'll happen with SoFi. I think actually the CEO does a great job, and I like where they're headed. Anyway, ramble over. I'm going way over the time limit that I should be, but I hope you're all doing well. I was feeling under the weather for a while there. I don't know if you heard it in this video, but hopefully I did an okay job here. Hope you guys are all doing well though, and I will catch you in the next video. All right, take care, my friends. Love you. Bye-bye.